Good to see you all. Happy Mother's Day. So I wanted to just say thank you to all of our moms for being here today. My notes just erased everything. It's fine. I have them in another place because it's not like I haven't done this before. So, back up your backup. So yes, moms are so important, and so we are just so thankful that you've chosen to celebrate with us today. I know there's some of you who are having your first Mother's Day, so happy first Mother's Day to you. Let's give them a round of applause to our moms. So special, and I remember my own first Mother's Day, and everyone kind of like, giving me this little giddy well wish that day. So it's really special. Moms, we're thankful to you. First off, that you gave me life, or gave us life. My son said that yesterday when we were doing a little pre-Mother's Day. It was like, say one thing that you are grateful for Mom. And James is like, for giving me life. And I was like, well, bless you, child, for remembering that. And also, I think I've reminded you a few times, right? We, as moms, we do say, and don't forget that I gave you life. That's our line, because it's like a trump card. We win every time. But we want to say thank you for all the ways that you care for us in really meaningful ways, and just the way that, now we've started to understand, so for some of us as adults, that the anxiety that you had about the coat as we were going out the door, or safe travels, or don't drive too fast, or be careful when you cross the street, all that anxiety, we now understand that as love, right? That's love. When you worry about us, that's love. And I have to tell my kids that all my worry is love, because that's what it is. So thank you for that. And since I have the microphone here, I want to give my own mom a shout out. My mom has been consistently my biggest cheerleader. Always is impressed with me. I'm like, you've known me for 40 years. How are you still impressed? She's always impressed with me and what I do. And it's just such a gift. And she's really good about meeting my needs in practical ways, especially when I was a new mom myself. And I definitely have to give a shout out to my mother-in-law, Linda, who helped to raise a gentleman who knows about how to make infused fruit water. That was my husband. And who has impeccable handwriting. It's better than mine. And he knows how to dress well and rearrange the living room much better than me. And so, yes, thank you to Linda for raising a Southern gentleman. Really grateful for that. We know that today is hard. Today is complicated. Today is Mother's Day is one of those days where for us, there's as much celebration as there is, loss, a sense of loss. Some of us have strained relationships with our moms or with our children or people who represent mother figures in our lives. And so we understand and we recognize for all of you who for this day is not a celebration, we are able to be present with you. We can celebrate moms being amazing, and we can also hold intention that sometimes it's not perfect. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes there's loss. And that's the human experience, is to hold those things in tension. And so with you, we are doing that with you today, if you're in that place. But I think what's important is that when we recognize that there's loss or that today is hard, it's because moms are so important, right? It's because moms matter so much to us that we feel so deeply about these people in our lives. And so we want to make that the biggest message of the day, is that no matter how you're feeling about yourself as a mom or about your own mother or about your kids or whatever those relationships are that are happening in your life right now, moms are important. Moms matter. And so moms, so we honor you in whatever season you're in. So for this Mother's Day panel, we wanted to, just focus a little bit on some of the sappy pieces of motherhood, because I feel like moms can be kind of like, known for the sentimental stuff. And there's this universal mom sound. It's like, aw, right? That's the universal mom sound. Like your kid gives you this, card, and it's like an X on a paper, when they're starting out, right? And eventually it gets a little more sophisticated, or, your kids give you money. That's always like so funny to me, because they got the money from me, first of all. And it's like a little bit of money, it's like change or $5 is like a huge sacrifice. And so motherhood is just like such a funny experience. And we wanted to be able to highlight that, because I think sometimes we can feel like, oh man, it's Mother's Day, it's gonna be like so sentimental, and maybe for some of you, you love that, but for me, I also love the way that humor has saved my bacon. Being able to laugh about things, and you know, I think sometimes we go, oh, dads are the ones that are always like on the floor tickling and wrestling, and you know, to be fair, I'm usually not, but I would say that humor has been such an important part of my resilience as a mom. And even as being a child of, you know, who has a mom. So that's what we wanted to focus on today, was just talking a little bit about humor and resilience, and just kind of pulling that out of some of the people in our community. So I'd like to have our panelists introduce themselves. And so we'll just go around, we'll start here. So you two can be sharing a mic, and then you two can share a mic. And we'll start here, and you can say your name, and you can say your kiddo, how many kiddos you have.
Okay. Is this on?
I think it is. Yes. Is it on?
Is it on?
That's on.
Okay. I'm Barb Goodman. Let's see. I'm old, and that means my kids are getting old. No. I have 2 sons. The first one is Nathan, and he is a professor, works at Oklahoma University, and he and his wife Abby have 4 kids. And my younger son, Aaron, who goes to this church, and his wife, Shanna.
We got a family event going on up here.
And their 2 children.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I'm Effie Swanson, and I have 3 boys, Cade, who is 6, Reed, who is 3, and Parker, who is 2.
I'm Shanna.
You could hold it down.
Oh.
Just hold it down.
Hello.
Hold the button down, sorry, and it should pop on.
Mute or select, I'm assuming?
Just push mute.
Hello. Okay, there we go. All right,
Sorry.
I'm Shanna Goodman. I'm gonna find the right spot for this. I'm Shanna Goodman, and I'm married to Aaron Goodman, her younger son, and she also, and Ron, taught Aaron a lot of really wonderful things that I get to be the beneficiary of, as do my 2 daughters. We have 2 girls. They both have May birthdays. So Ella just turned 14, and Genevieve will turn 10 in a couple of weeks.
Hi, I'm Susie Kastner, and I'm going to introduce myself with an interpretive dance like my children asked me to.
Oh, I can't wait. Can you cue the music?
Yes. No, I have a 17-year-old boy that's sitting in the back. It's Ian. Wave at everybody, Ian. There we go. He's a junior in high school, and then Sally is 13. She's in 7th grade.
Oh, well.
And I'm not going to dance.
Oh, she's not going to dance.
He's dying in the back.
But but you do get to do whatever you want to do on Mother's Day. So if at the last minute you change your mind, we're all okay with that.
We're free.
Yeah. So I'm Sarah Siders, as Ben mentioned. I'm one of the pastors here, and I have 2 boys who are 11 and 8, and not yet professors. But any day now, especially the 8-year-old. He's an old soul. So let's dive in to our questions. I wanted to start off with thinking back to before we were moms. So one of the funny things about becoming a mom is that no one, including you, usually remembers what it was like before you were a mom. And the way I always say that, like, however old you are and however old your children are is how old you are in mom years. So when my oldest is 11 and a half. So I'm 11 and a half in mom years. I'm about to go to middle school in mom years. I'm, awkward in mom years, whatever. And it helps me place myself properly, is even though I'm 40, I don't know 40 years of things about parenting. I only know 11 and a half years of things about parenting. And so let's adjust our expectations here, okay? So that has been really helpful to me. But sometimes I forget about what I was like before I was a mom. And so I would love to hear from you, and we'll start with Susie. When you think back to before you were a mom, if your brain can access that, what are one or two things about you that you know have not changed?
My dancing skills. And I'm just kidding. I told my kids I wouldn't embarrass them a lot. I think just a little bit. Just finding sense of humor in everything. I was never that terribly serious person anyways, but something in that line.
Yep.
It's hard to even remember. I mean, I know that you just said this.
Yes.
But I think I underestimated the amount of fun that we would have. I grew up in kind of an authoritarian type of household.
Yeah.
And so before I was a mom, I remember being incredibly stressed about my due date because I was like, I'm gonna be somebody's mom. Like, that's a big deal.
Right.
Like, I could, whatever I do could impact this little person for the rest of their life, or would impact that person. And so I think I was just really stressed about that. But I think the things that remain are still like the sense of humor, sense of having fun. And I'm an introvert, but my husband's an extrovert, and he's always looking for a good time. and so I think that's something that we were and still are.
I love that.
Yeah, I hear you on the extrovert thing. I am a starving extrovert, always have been, and I think always will be. So that's been interesting as a mom. When you're first a mom, there's not a lot of extrovert opportunities when you're home with a baby, but once they get older, that kind of, you can see it coming, like I can see it coming out in my kids, which is fun. My oldest is definitely an extrovert, so that's been fun to see. I've also always been really goal-oriented, so to see that come out in my parenting, sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't, but that's something that I don't know that I can change about myself.
You're like
So
the mom at the play date, like, my kid walked first. All right, go. We're gonna get 10 steps.
Right, and then you get to like potty training, and I haven't checked that box yet. So,
Oh my goodness.
So it can be a helpful thing, and then also something that's very growing for me as a mom. So.
Yes.
Oh, she had to bring up that perfectionism. I suppose that hasn't changed either for me. Well, no, that's not true. It's lightened up. But what I really want to say was something that has changed. Before I had any kids, I wanted 5 boys because I was thinking a basketball team.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's your retirement plan.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I'm not even professional, but just, having fun together. And then I had Nathan.
Too bad he's not here to hear that.
And, I'm sure I've told him. And after that, it was like, okay, maybe we'll have number 2.
Yes.
And what I have retained, I guess, is spunky goofiness.
I love that. I just sit here and I'm mic'd. You can't even tell. I can just amplify my voice by sitting here. So cool. I appreciate that. And I love that humor has come up so many times. I think that I would say for me, like, what's been interesting is that I still have a very like goofy, playful side. There is probably, I would say almost every day, most days of the week, there's a dance party going on in my living room at some point. There's a lot of craziness and silliness. But also because when I became a mom, I had a lot of anxiety about my kids being okay or us being okay, and a lot of catastrophizing. So I used to just be like, oh, I'm gonna get on a plane and go somewhere. And now I think through that a little bit more. So that's changed. But the spontaneity around a lot of things is still there. So it is interesting to see like how it changes and how you kind of have to adapt to. So thinking back again to before you were a mom, I know we were all like really amazing parents before we were moms. I was such a good mom. My kids knew more than one language, and they didn't watch any television. Now, to be fair, there were no children. This was just in my head. But I had a lot of people that I saw, and so I would always make notes in my head about, well, I'm never going to do that, to myself. So I would be curious. We can start here with Barb. What are, if I know it's changed over time, but if you can think back to something that you thought, I'm definitely not going to do that, or I definitely am going to do that, and then you did the opposite after you actually became a mom and realized what was involved.
I actually resonated with my father more, and what I wish my mother had done more was connect better. She was just always busy and could never, it seemed to me like she could never get to me to have time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, didn't damage me forever, but a little bit.
A little bit of damage. Let's just say it what it is.
But, so I determined to do that and to be more like my father, but even more, because he was playful to an extent, but then, I want more than that with my kids.
That connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's really neat. I appreciate that intention.
It's really deep, Barb. I thought my kids would never eat as many hot dogs as they do, so that's It's true.
The hot dogs,
The
yeah.
hot dogs.
The hot dog situation.
There was, it was also kind of interesting, Chris and I were talking about this, my husband is Chris, that there was not necessarily like before we were parents, there was this, oh, we're never doing that. More like after our first kid, we got really smug, right? Because God, I feel like sometimes God tricks you with your firstborn. It's like, oh, this is easy. This kid is compliant, he's sweet, he's well behaved. You can have 2 more at the same time. So that was our story. But I don't know, we had this really smug attitude of like, oh, our kids are never gonna act like that. Like, look at Kate, right? Like, our kids are never gonna throw fits in the grocery store or whatever. And anyone who has met my younger children knows that that is not true. So.
We were of the other camp in that we had a very strong-willed, very demanding, I love you, Ella Goodman, but very demanding little one to begin with. So I felt like I had to have my wits about me all the time because I'm like, I cannot lose this battle ever.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, so we maybe when she was 3 years old, maybe we can have another when she's 3 or 4 years old. But we did see other parents that had kind of angel babies to begin with, and we're like, you don't even know. You don't even know what that next one's gonna look like.
So true.
What was the question?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay,
I was hoping you knew.
I got lost. Oh, what were we never gonna do?
Yeah, you never gonna do, yeah.
Okay, so tantrums. Oh, perfect. That's helpful. That's so helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Effie.
And it's in a lovely italic font.
Okay, so I think along the lines of my kid's not gonna act like that. Like, my kid is not gonna throw a tantrum in the grocery store. Well, sure enough, we were going into JCPenney, and Ella she was 2, I think she wanted to just walk, and I'm like, I'm not chasing you all over the store. And so I told her if she wanted to go into JCPenney, she would need to get in the little stroller cart thingy. She wouldn't do it. She threw herself down on the, it was like the vestibule thingy, like before you walk in. And I was just kind of mortified. And so I called my mom from the JCPenney vestibule. Is that how you say that? Vestibule? I don't know. Vestibule. And so I'm, picture Ella, who is now very sweet and very compliant. I kind of have to act this out. So she is laying in the vestibule, screaming. I'm not sure if she was face down or face up, but I took out my cell phone and I was just kind of hiding myself from Ella. And I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, what do I do? She's freaking out. She's screaming and she's like, you've got to go home. You've got to take her home. And I'm like, these are errands I have to accomplish. She's like, you got to go. I'm like, okay. So I did. I bundled her back in the car, but yeah, for all of the, I'm going to be such a great parent. You get into these humbling moments, and you're like, okay, you've got to think on your feet, or call your mom.
Yes, so true.
Those are all very good. I mean, the only thing I could think of that I vowed that I'd never do as a parent, it was something that always grossed me out as a kid, was the finger lick clean. That grossed me out so much as a kid, and I was like, I am never gonna do that. Take my spit and put it on my kid's face just to clean it. It's so wrong. And fast forward to having kids, and you're like, I have nothing. I'm not going to use my shirt because I don't want to have to wash it immediately, so I'm going to. And I remember when I was doing it, just feeling like I died a little inside. Because I'm like, I vowed I'd never do this. But yeah, I pretty much set low standards.
Smart.
Yeah, because I knew I could at least succeed at that. But yeah, I could tell stories about my kids all day long.
And they're hoping you do.
I know, because they're here, and I'm looking at one of them shaking their head knowingly.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so funny. That yes, it is true. Like you go, where's the the liquid, the fluid that I have to? Yeah, I did it.
I mean,
recently.
the licking of the passy after it's fallen on the ground.
Yeah.
That happened with the second, not the first. But
yeah, that's true. That's true. It's the second where you're willing to do that. My kids, speaking of humbling situations, my kids had like a rite of passage, and it was going dead weight in the middle of Morrow on 12th Street between what is now the Fat Shack and So Long Saloon. The exact same place. I was like, wow, we're just gonna make sure we get this one in. You're officially a Cider's boy. You're dead weight in the middle of the street. I think one thing that I thought, so I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and the little hippie darling of the forest, outside all the time, making acorn soup and chasing butterflies. And so I was sure, we didn't have a television really, we didn't play video games. And I was like, well, I'm clearly not gonna do that. My children will be children of the forest. Well, they were children of the suburbs, and there's not really like there wasn't a creek behind our house, where we have. And so all these things that like were part of my childhood geographically that made it what it was, were not part of my kids' childhood. So they watched TV, because we had a TV, Josh grew up with that. And so even just television at all, video games, oh man, I give the like whole mom guilt trip about video games every time a console comes in my house. So yeah, that's a whole thing. But I have boys. What am I going to do, right? It's not my fault. So most of our kids are not here with us. So I think maybe a fair question would be, who is your favorite child?
Oh, I can answer that.
I'm just kidding. Okay, we've got people requesting a vote.
I always tell the kid it's the dog.
Okay, I guess we'll skip.
I think my youngest thinks it's the oldest, and the oldest thinks it's the
Okay,
youngest.
that is true though. They both do think it's the other one, and so yeah. Okay. Oh, it says just kidding on the slide. Okay, that's good. I'm glad. One thing that's been interesting for me becoming a mom, it helped me understand my mom's just what it's like to be a mom, and all the things that when I was a kid, I was such a little darling. And I didn't, all the things that I was doing wrong that my mom was reacting against that I remember being so horrifying, when I was a kid, it was like, how could she do that to me? I was so precious, I was definitely not compliant. I was a real big, I knew that, but I was like, but I was also so adorable. And how could she do that to me? And so then when you become a mom, you're like, I know exactly how she could, like lose her temper or whatever. So I'm curious about how motherhood, the journey of motherhood and the different stages has helped you to think about your own mom, or give your mom, maybe just have a little bit of empathy in a moment where you go, oh, this is what it's like. I'd be curious. Susie, do you want to start? Or you don't have to. I just am trying to alternate.
So, oh, gosh. I've been thinking about this question and trying to sum up. Anybody that's ever met my mom knows that she's a rock star. She was a single mom with 3 teenage girls and lived to tell the story, because I don't know how she told me, yeah, never mind. She might watch this, so I got to be nice. She just taught us how to be steadfast and true, even in the midst of conflict. My mom could have shared a lot of stuff that would have tainted my view on a lot of things, and from her experience. And she just kept it positive, but she always made it fun. She was a teacher too, and so she made everything educational. I look back now, I'm like, everything was educational, which is fine. It's fine. But she taught me how just to be consistent as much as possible. And I look back now, I've called my mom a lot and apologized, just for being whatever stage of life my kids were in, which were great, by the way. But yeah, I mean, our daughter is named after my mom. And when my mom came in after she was born, and we're like, her name is Sally, and she's like, but you're gonna call her by her middle name, right? And I was like, no, if I was gonna call her by her middle name, I would have named her middle name her first name. And, so my mom said, thank you so much. Just make sure I'm never called Big Sally. She said, I love this so much. I love her so much. Just make sure I'm not Big Sal. That's all I want to know. And I said, I will make sure that does not happen. And she's not. She's still Grandma Sally. So did I answer that? Empathy, yeah. I don't know how she did it.
You apologized to your mom. That's basically kind of what, yeah. Yeah.
I was that kid that she'd find in the tree and go, please get down.
Yeah, I think so. I think every new stage kind of brings a new level of understanding for maybe what she was going through as a person, but then also how she always taught us to be very nurturing, very loving, and looking back as an adult, I can see where there were times in her life that were really hard, but she didn't ever, we always felt really loved. Like, we didn't always agree on things, but we always felt very, very loved and very secure in that love and support. And so I think knowing that now as an adult and kind of knowing some other things that were going on, I'm like, well, that's, she could have taken some of that stuff out on us, or she could have kind of retreated into her own, because she's an introvert too, so she could have retreated into her own space. But she didn't. She was always, we were always, together, lots of hugs, lots of cuddling, that sort of thing, and we do that in our family now too.
That's really cool. Yeah, Effie?
I think for me, it was one of those, maybe this is a better answer for that, I'll never do that question, but my mom she struggled with making motherhood her whole life in some ways. Yeah. And I think now I understand that a bit more, because she had kids later in life, she had a really long journey to motherhood, and it was really important to her. And in a lot of ways, I felt like it was too important. Like she was so wrapped up in me and my sister and what we were. But now I kind of get it. And it's something that I'm very conscious of in myself. It's like, that's probably just because she loved us so much, you know? And it was, so yeah, it's interesting to think about that now and kind of see what do I think the right balance is for me and my kids, and how do I keep that a healthy balance in my life?
Yeah.
I recall one of my biggest irritations with my mother was when she would take me to my piano lesson, which was in town. We lived out on a farm, and she'd drop me off. I'd do my piano lesson, and she would go run errands, get her grocery store stuff done, and who knows, all of it. I mean, she had to go to 3 different stores. You had to go to the one that had it on sale.
Right.
So, it always took longer than my half an hour piano lesson. So she was always late picking me up. And I have to say now, kind of understand how hard it is to get all those errands in and get everything done and meet the expectation of your child to be there.
Right. Because there's usually a kiddo saying, "Mom, why are you late?
Yeah.
You're humiliating me," and you're like running all around trying to do all these things. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it might be hard to narrow this down, but I think that some of us feel like we go, "Oh, I'm a baby mom. I love the baby stage. I love the like newborn squishy, floppy head stage." Or I'm totally not a baby mom. Like, "Oh my gosh, please, can we fast forward past this?" You kind of see where I'm going. Or like, I love the elementary stage. I love the teenage stage when they're getting more. And some of us, I'm not in the, Effie and I aren't in the teenage stage yet, but I'm curious about, in your experience so far, what's been one of the stages of parenting, however you would describe that, that's been, the most fun or kind of cool or interesting? Do you want to start?
Yes, but I can't do that. It's like every stage became the best.
Wow, that's so cool.
I mean, I really did, sometimes you think you want to hurry up, get such and such an age, but not really. Everyone was different and was cool in and of itself. And so right now's the best time. They're grown up and they're cool and we love each other.
And you did it. You made two cool kids.
Yeah.
And you just never know how it's going to go, right? Are they going to be cool when they grow up? You just hope. Yes, good job.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I mean, granted, I'm still in the, 6 and under stage, but I'm that mom that I cry the night before my kids' birthdays because it means that the year is over. I know. So I've loved every stage. My least favorite, definitely pregnancy. For sure, pregnancy.
Oh, yeah.
But that's when you can sleep. Well, I guess before, if it's the first one.
That's so true.
So I love babies. So I loved the baby stage. And so I even thought, I wonder if, when my kids aren't babies anymore, when they're not squishy and lovable, or they're always lovable, but squishy,
yes.
right?
Yes, the squishiness.
There's a squishy factor that's super fun. But like everyone else has been saying, each stage has been really fun because they're more of who they are. They can communicate more. They can do more. They can. They're just so much more fun. And we are entering. Well, not we aren't entering the teenage years. We're in it. But it's been a ton of fun. I was worried about middle school and just different things. And every single stage has been fun. There's never been a time that I'm like, okay, I want this to fast forward. I know there will be hard times, and there were hard times in each stage. But I agree, it's just it just becomes better and more fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, I've enjoyed every phase, camp. It's just, although I would say so far one of my favorites is when we finally got to show our kids Nacho Libre. That was
rite of passage.
That was a good.
Yep, same.
Good rite of passage.
Yep.
But I think the hardest, when I think about hard times as a parent, I think a lot of it was because it was hard because I didn't have the control.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of a couple of them when our kids were wanting to dress themselves. And, I would send them to school wanting to put a note with the kids saying they dressed themselves today. But now there's, and I have taken pictures of some of, it was more our second-born than our firstborn, but there were some very interesting concoctions put together, and I just had to make sure that it was weather appropriate. There was a lot of layering that went on sometimes, but that was more a problem. It wasn't so much them, it was more me, because I had to let go. And, were my kids covered appropriately? Yes. Would they die of hypothermia? Possibly. But I sent a coat with them, or a sweater, or shorts in the wintertime, Ian Kastner. But that was all, it was more them being who they were as opposed to me being in control.
Wow. That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true.
When you think you have control, you don't have control.
Oh yeah, and I think that's like when people are on a plane, you can kind of hear a kid is crying on the plane, and there's like someone yelling, "Control your kid" or whatever, or it's in your head, and you realize that there's certain moments you can't control your kid, and I would say that those are the types of moments, trying to get them to take medicine, brush their teeth. If I was gonna have a stage that I straight up, because I have loved all the stages, but I do not love at all, in any way, the potty training stage for boys, because that stage is 2 years long. And some people are like, we did it in a weekend, or we let the little darlings like run around in the yard without their pants on. Well, you know what? We did that one time. And then they thought that the outdoors was their bathroom. So then one of them, I don't remember who it was, I truly don't, and I think it's for their benefit that I don't, but we were at Blue Earth Plaza, and they're playing the fountain, and since the universe is their bathroom, they were like, I think it was my older one, because I remember having the baby, and I'm holding the baby, and I'm just minding my business, and all of a sudden I see my child, doing some things. And I'm like sprinting with my child like across, and I'm like, no. And I was like, and that's the end of the bathroom toilet situation. But yeah, it was so long with my first that I said with my second, I was like, he's gonna be 15 years old and begging me to potty train him. Because I'm not, you want to speak to this?
Sarah,
Yeah.
you obviously did not read the best-selling book about how to potty train in a day.
Okay, did you write that book? And why did you not give it to me?
No.
Did it work for you?
No.
You obviously did not read How to Potty
I
Train.
think I read and reread.
Yes, you do. You read. What am I doing wrong here?
My boys were stubborn.
Boys are hard with this, but it is the moments where you're not in control. And that, for me, mixed with the things that are going on in the bathroom, that is like a concoction for crazy for me. So anyway, that was pretty hilarious. So I know we are trying to wrap up here. I've got lots more questions. So let me ask you this. We've got moms in here who are in so many different stages, and thinking about the stage that you're at and when you were starting out, what's one piece of advice that when you started, you're like, man, I wish I'd known this. I wish that I'd thought of this. I wish I'd factored this in or had been doing this the whole time, maybe. It looks like nobody wants to give advice. This is fantastic. We can move on. Do you want to take that? Something that you wish you'd been aware of, or someone had said to you that you could have implemented?
So Shanna Goodman actually gave me a very good piece of advice a little too late. She told me, she said, well, Effie, you've got to start as you mean to go on. And I said, what does that mean, Shanna? She said, when you set a standard, that's the standard. And so you need to start as you mean to go on. And so practically right now in the potty training stage, Thank you all very much. You can pray for me. But I decided for some reason that when Parker went potty, he could choose a piece of candy out of the Easter basket. Oops. That was a terrible choice. So every mom out there, start as you mean to go on.
That's good.
So I got that from a book called The Baby Whisperer, and I relied on this woman for the first year of our baby's life. And I was hoping she'd help us get through adolescence, but she died, so she stopped writing books. But
morbid.
But this book was kind of my Bible in parentheses for that first period, because she talked me through like all of these great sequences and schedule and routine, but it wasn't a schedule. It was more of a routine, and here's how you do it. And so the baby whisperer, I can't remember the name, Melinda something maybe, but I gave that. I would buy copies of that. I would give it to friends as they had their first. But that really set a stage for me, because like, okay, I think that's why I was also in the I can't lose this battle camp of things, because I felt like, if we had tantrums, if we had these different things happening, I would much rather deal with them with a small person whose body was one that I could like wrap my arms around.
Yeah.
So a 2-year-old, I'm like, I will deal with this when she's 2. I don't want to deal with this when she's 16 and she can just get in her car and storm off and have bigger consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that you're going to talk to yourself a lot, and that's okay. I said a lot of, I'm the boss, I'm the boss, I'm the boss, to myself, but also just knowing your kid. They don't come out, you don't know them immediately. You have to really get to know your kid and know what will work for your kid. Because, I read some books, too, and I would read it and go, yeah, that's never going to happen with number 1, or that worked with number 2, but not number 1. And, just have realistic expectations of dealing with situations. A timeout was torturous for Sally, but Ian could sit there all day long. He was like, sure, I'll stay here, no problem. And you're like, well, that's not the effect I was hoping. So just knowing your kid and pick your battles, because especially with the clothes thing, I was like, you know what, this is not worth it. This is not worth losing sanity, sleep, whatever over. You have to pick your battles and let them, every so often, my kids are great negotiators. Oh my goodness. They're amazing negotiators. But sometimes their ideas aren't that bad. And so you have to really pick your battles, because sometimes it's just not worth it. And it makes them feel good too. But they're still not in control, and you are still the boss.
That's right. That's good. Barb, do you have any advice that you wish you'd had? One hand.
Chill out.
Oh, man.
Have your structure, but don't freak out with them. Just guide more than thrust them through things.
Yeah.
But,
Man, it seems like as you're going through, that's the way. And then on the other side, you're like, oh, I could have been way more chill about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. I don't know that I have advice that I wish I'd had. I think I'm always just trying to be present. I'm trying so hard to take pictures with my mind, because you just can't, as every stage you go, man, that went fast, right? Like on the birthday, you're like, man, that went so fast. And I'm just trying to be here in this moment, whatever this is. And there's some moments I'm like, if they're fighting in the living room, I'm not trying to be in that moment. I'm trying to get that moment wrapped up. But I'll wake up in the morning and James is playing on the couch, with his little stuffed dragon and his toys, and he still has his little high voice, and it's so sweet, just the sweetness of it, and it's just like, man, I'm trying to be there in those, be present and enjoy these things, because it does go so fast. Be in the moment. Yeah, it's so special. In order, upstairs and in classrooms today, we have a lot of dads, and so awesome. So thanks to the dads for doing that. We're going to wrap up and bring up our worship team, but I want to say just a big thank you to everybody who made this a special day. There was a lot of dads, especially shout out to Pastors Dave, Ben, and Josh for all the work that they did behind the scenes to make sure that there was food ordered and the planning and just taking things off of mom's plates, making sure kids' rooms were staffed in collaboration with Alicia. Of course, Misty with the beautiful photo backdrop. Make sure that you get photos done by Brooklyn, our photographer extraordinaire. Thank you, Brooklyn. We just have had so many people just really work hard and put so many details into today, and I feel really loved from that. I don't like details, but I like when other people like details. Bless you. And so it just looks so good, and it's so perfect. So thank you guys. Thank you to everybody for that.
There's one thing I have. Is this on?
Yep,
Is this
there you
on?
go.
I thought it's one of the questions you skipped.
I know, I'm running out of time. Yay, shoot.
My biggest joy now as a mother
Yeah.
is watching my children parent their kids.
Wow.
And they are doing it very well. And furthermore, they apparently had enough good parenting that they chose good wives.
Wow.
So, and that's sort of a...
They're going to have a nice Mother's Day brunch. They're going to actually enjoy each other today, aren't they?
That's a critical thing.
It really is. It really is.
I'm just vindicated in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't do everything right.
Right.
But they got enough to be raising their children in the Lord and in healthy ways. And
That's incredible.
yeah.
And Barb, like, only you could say that, right?
right.
Like, you're the
None
one
of
up
them
here
have
who, we don't have grandkids yet, but we aspire to. And so I just think that's so special. Thank you for ending us with that. That's really, really beautiful. And that's exactly what we're going for, is raising people who love themselves, love their families and their friends, love God, and who are doing beautiful and good things in the world. So thank you so much for that. A round of applause for our panelists, everyone.
This teaching was recorded by Tallgrass at the Well. We're building community together by inviting people into the way of Jesus. For more resources like this, visit tallgrassatthewell.church.